In Solid Edge ST3, we've made many enhancements to our assembly environment. One of those enhancements that we'll be looking at here is the display configurations. Display configurations, the user can now select multiple configurations at the same time and display them, while also fitting the view. And that's one of the new options as well, is that the user can choose to turn that on or off. Another option is if you have multiple users saving and working on this assembly, you can now tell Solid Edge to have one single default configuration, and that's the default Solid Edge display configuration. Next, to manage your configurations, we've come up with a configuration manager. You can now clear out any file that you've deleted from your assembly. Will clear all of them out of your configurations. And if you've added new files, we will highlight them and have a tool that will automatically find them for you. From here you can select which configuration you would like for those new files to be displayed in, and you can just use one single click and it adds to all configurations. Now, as you see here, the user can go through and they can look at all of their display configurations and turn on and off those parts for those specific configurations. You still have your control over how you want the parts to be displayed. Would you like to have assembly reference planes displayed as well? We've also added a snapshot option. So let's say the user goes out and they select files that they either hide or show, and they get the display the way they want, but they don't want to save it yet as a configuration, but they want to maybe revert back to it at a later time. Well, they can use the take the snapshot command and take that snapshot, and so as they're working in their daily assembly lives, they can sit there and at any time go back to and restore that particular snapshot that they had and have the view fit onto their screen. Next, what we want to take a look at is the ability to choose a subassembly and look at its configurations directly at the top level. So in this case here, I want to select a subassembly and I want to look at its display configuration. So the user can just select that, and if they have multiple instances of this particular subassembly, then that will be applied to them as well. If not, they can select no, and it only applies to that single instance. Now, the tools for the display configuration have also been enhanced while you're in place activated into a subassembly or actually into a part as well. You can see that from that subassembly we can take a look at the top level display configurations and have access to those while we're in place activated into a subassembly or into a single part. One of the other enhancements that you will find is dealing with adjustable parts. Adjustable parts now, if they are patterned inside of the assembly, whenever you make your adjustment, the instance that is there and all the other instances based on the pattern will also update at the same time, making your assembly more fluid. And so whenever you go through and you test out how you want the parts to move, everything will be displayed and update on the screen for you in an instant. So these are some of the few enhancements that we've made inside of the assembly environment. Let's take a look at some other enhancements dealing inside of assembly. Let's take a look now at inter-part relationships. Inter-part relationships has been inside of Solid Edge now for a very long time, and we've enhanced those with synchronous 3. We have a motor with a mounting boss. Now let's take a look at this mounting boss, and we'll be able to see inside. Right now there's not anything that's tied to other parts. There's no relationships, there's no inner part copies. So how can we get some inner part copies now into this single part file? By using a new tool to create inner part copies. We can just select the part that we want to reference from, and we automatically find those relating faces to be applied, and you can see all those relationships, and you can turn them on and off as you see fit. And we can go into that part file, and you'll be able to now see that we automatically added those faces and relationships, so that now when we make our change, Live Rules is going to pick up. We're going to make a cross-section edit change using a dimension that's driving the cross-section of our part. And by instantly making these changes, we can then update the file, and you'll see that our boss has been updated. So you can see it's very fluid now and very easy to make these changes inside of your assembly by using inner part copy. Now let's take a look at sheet metal. Sheet metal has been enhanced to add etching to your parts. So if you wanted to laser etch text onto a particular face, or you wanted to etch a logo onto a particular face, it's very easy to do now inside of Solid Edge ST3. Simply go out, place your sketch, whether that be text or lines or arcs, and we can now define how you want this displayed in the DXF file. What are your line types, what are your line weights are applied, and whenever you go to the flat, that will translate to the flat as well. We've also enhanced our corner reliefs. We now have the ability to add a square, a U-shaped, a V-shaped, or also a miter corner inside of there. If your corners do not actually match up or together, they're spaced out, no problem with Solid Edge sheet metal. You can simply go in, we bring those two together, give you a watertight corner, and you can again choose what type of corner relief you would like to see in that corner. So we'll just show you our third option, which is the U-shaped. It's very simple, selecting those two rounds. So with the tools right there at your fingertips, you're able to put in that information very quickly and very easily right there at your cursor. Now let's take a look at the flat pattern of what this would actually look like. So whenever we add this flat pattern, you see the new corner reliefs. We see that the etching has been added to there. But one other option that we've added to the flat pattern is sometimes you need to have extra material placed out onto your flat. So we've given the ability to add a tab while you're in the flat. This information is not translated to the bent up model, it is only placed in the flat, so if you need extra material to hold on to. And it's easy, just like you would in a regular sheet metal file. Operation is just the same as it is inside the flat, and we can step back into the bent up shape. Now let's go back to our assembly and let's look at zones. We can take a look at zones. Zones have been inside of Solid Edge for a while. You can see how easy it is to get an area of your part to show by using zones. But with the PMI tools, we can now take this information, and those PMI we can retrieve inside the draft file, which you'll be able to see in another demonstration. But before we stop, I want to show that you can now drive the assembly numbering, your balloons, directly inside of the assembly. We can add balloons and place them out onto our part. All this information now can be driven from the assembly to the draft file.